center field. Back, and
good victory. He went around, and it's over.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our show, the Panhandle Conference Top 25. I'm your host, Scott Rossman. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to talk about the best players to have ever played baseball in the Panhandle Conference here in Northwest Florida. And let's start with our panel of coaches. We've got an incredible panel of coaches who've won well over several thousand baseball games over the past 30 years or so. And we're going to start with how this idea came about with the former head coach and current athletic director here at Gulf Coast, Mike Kandler. Coach Kandler, talk about this idea. And
yeah, when I stepped down from my position as a head coach, I just really had time to reflect about what an amazing league I had an opportunity to coach in, and how many great players that I got to coach personally, and how many great players I coached against. So I just felt like, maybe it'd be a neat project just to try to document who actually were the best players that have ever played in our league. So at that point, I was able to contact some people that had coached in the league and formed a committee. And we just kind of sat down and hashed it out. And what our criteria was it was really difficult, but it was to pick the guys that were the best major league players. It was almost an impossible task if you were to just pick the guys that were great junior college players or four-year players or even minor league players. So through a long, strenuous process, we just figured out what we think are the best 25 players in Panhandle Conference history.
Let's go ahead and introduce you to the full group here of coaches, starting with Coach Kandler, who just spoke to us. Coach Kandler spent a total of 34 years in coaching, 3 in as assistant at Gulf Coast and another 16 as the head coach at Gulf Coast. He's posted 819 total wins as head coach at Pine Forest High School, Alabama Southern, and Gulf Coast in 27 years as a head coach. And next up comes Coach McLeod, who spent 6 seasons coaching in minor league baseball, also spent 9 years as an assistant coach at Florida State University, then moved on to become the head coach at Tallahassee Community College, guiding the Eagles for 32 years. In that time, he put up an incredible record of 1,059 and 474. Next to him, to his left, is Bobby Pierce, 34 years in coaching. Coach Pierce with stints at Chipola, the University of Alabama as an assistant coach, the University of Alabama Huntsville, and Troy University as head coach. In all, Coach Pierce posted a record of 985 wins as a head coach in 27 years. He's a part of 5 different baseball halls of fame. Next to him, to his left, is Jeff Johnson, representing Chipola College. Jeff began coaching on the high school level and at Mariana and Liberty High Schools, then moved up to the JUCO level at Chipola, where he spent the last 26 years as the head coach, amassing a 959 and 436 record. Guided Chipola to the NJCAA National Championship 3 times in 2007, 2017, and 2018. This year, he was inducted into the NJCAA Hall of Fame. Representing Pensacola and North Florida colleges is Coach Bill Hamilton, 23 years total, 3 years at North Florida and 20 seasons as the head coach of the Pirates with 703 wins. All that part of a career that spanned 37 years in college athletics, 23 of them, including 23 of them as an athletic director. Coaches in 4 different halls of fame, including the NJCAA Baseball Hall of Fame. And last but not least is Coach Mazeroski. Darren Mazeroski spent 21 years in coaching, the first few as an assistant with Gulf Coast legend Bill Frazier. Darren then guided the Commodores for 13 seasons as head coach, winning 457 games. After coaching, he moved on to become a scout for the Pittsburgh Pirates organization and has been in that job for 18 years and counting. So welcome, gentlemen, one and all.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with player number 25 on this list. Again, a list that was very difficult to whittle down to just 25. But that player is Bobby Jones out of Orange, New Jersey. Recruited by Del Hughes to Chipola. He was drafted in the 44th round of the 91 draft by Milwaukee, signed as a draft and follow in May of 92. He played 6 major league seasons, had a career of 14-21 with a 5.77 earned run average, pitched in 99 big league games, went 7-8 with a 5.22 ERA for Colorado in 1998 and 141 innings. That was actually respectable in Colorado before the humidor. Made 20 starts in both 98 and 99. Once faced the right-handed Bobby Jones in a game that featured Bobby Jones versus Bobby Jones. And we're going to have a couple of coaches talk about Coach Jones. Coach Mazeroski and Coach Johnson, your recollections of player number 25 on our list. Coach Maz.
I remember Bobby was a power arm. He just knew he was going to come at you, and it was a tough get, and it seemed like we got him quite a bit during his time there at Chipola. So he was a tough get, strong arm, good breaking ball. He just kind of had that look of a major leaguer about him.
Coach Johnson, you got to watch Bobby Jones pitch
That was
a little bit.
before my time. I was in the high school level then, but of him playing at Chipola, just looking back and looking through the stats of back in those days, and remembering when I was in high school watching those games. He had a great arm, like Maz said, with a great breaking ball, and just ended up having a really good future, a really good career, with the Rockies. Coach Hamilton here, I think, coached.
Yeah, we faced him several times. He was quick to the plate, hard to run on. It was going to be a tough day when Bobby pitched for Chipola, but I was glad to see him leave.
Yeah, it was a sad day. I remember.
Yeah, it was a sad day for
To me, I remember that he had a really good changeup on top of everything else. If you were able to get to the fastball, good luck, because then you were just getting a changeup. So he was definitely one of the better guys. I was an assistant here at the time. He's definitely one of the better guys that we ever faced.
Yeah.
So number 25 on the list is Bobby Jones. Well, number 24 on our list is Hoskin Powell, who played at Chipola. Hoskin was drafted in the first round of the 1975 Major League Baseball January draft. They had 2 drafts back then, and he was taken in the first round of the 1975 June draft as well by Minnesota. He played 6 Major League Baseball seasons, had a career batting average of 259 over 1,800 ball games, played in 1,800 at-bats, I should say, and then played in 594 games, hit 293 in 1979 and 388 at-bats. Hoskin Powell out of Selma, Alabama is player number 24 on our list. And to talk a little bit about Hoskin, we're going to go to Coach Bobby Pierce. Coach.
Yeah, Hoskin goes back to my high school days, and during those days we used to go to Chipola quite a bit and watch ball games and watch the great players that they had, and by far Hoskin was one of the better players I'd ever seen play. To back that up, his coach Ellis Dungan, who I later took over for in 1982, would tell you today that Hoskin Powell was the best player that's ever come through Chipola, and certainly the best player he's ever coached. So Hoskin was a guy that we had to really consider hard, and his numbers speak for themselves, making our top 25.
All right, is there any other coach who wants to talk about?
Hoskin lives in Pensacola, has for years, and spent a long time after his playing career as a scout. He came out and helped our teams on many occasions, many semesters when he had the time. And I was amazed at the size bat that Hoskin used. It was as big on the handle as some of them are in the barrel these days. And I think it weighed close to 40 ounces. So he was a hard worker too. Not only was he very talented, but Hoskin was a hard worker. He gave back to the community. He was always one of the featured guys at any of the camps or clinics you might have. There was a long-time clinic in Pensacola, Fred Waters Clinic. Hoskin was one of the mainstays in that clinic.
So representing Chipola, number 24 on our list is Hoskin Powell.
Hands stay inside the ball.
Deep drive to center, angle looking up at the wall. Gone! Home run, Adam Malone, his first big league home run to dead center.
Moving on to player number 23 on our list of the best Panhandle Conference baseball players out of Surrey, British Columbia, is Adam Lowen, representing Chipola College. Adam drafted in the first round of 2002 by the Baltimore Orioles. He was the 4th pick overall in that draft. He signed as a draft and follow out of Chipola. Adam played in 6 Major League Baseball seasons, had a 10-8 career record with a 5.85 earned run average. He's one of only 2 players in Major League Baseball history to make it up as a pitcher, then up as a hitter, then back up as a pitcher. He's the highest drafted player in Panhandle Conference history and the 2nd highest drafted Canadian-born player ever. So representing number 23 on our list for Chipola College is Adam Lowen, and Coach Jeff Johnson knows a lot about this young man.
Well, you know, you never want to say your most talented player you ever coached, but Adam was 6'5", about 225 pounds, and you know, just a freak of nature, a left-handed pitcher, threw the ball up into the mid-90s with 4 pitches, change-up, breaking ball, curveball, slider. Also hit in the middle of our order in a 3-4 hole for us and played center field, first base as well. And you know, the thing about him is this, you know, you look back and see the things he was able to do with his talent level. You know, he's a 4th pick in the first round, turned that down. Back in that day, Baltimore was trying to hold the signing bonuses down to $2 million, and the guys in front of him were all getting 4 and 5, and behind him were getting 4 and 5 million. So he came to school, which I didn't think would ever happen. You know, during the draft and fall days, you just thought it was a show. And I remember took him to his science class the first day he was there, and we walked him in, and I'm like, "There's no way this is going to happen." You know? And somewhere along the way, somebody's going to walk out. His agent's going to, or his advisor's going to call him on the phone, and the advisor did call him on the phone. He called him right before he went in. He says, "You're sure you want to do this?" And he said, "Yes." So he goes in to his science class, and I'd already prepped the teacher. I said, "Make sure he's first on the roll that day to call his name first." So we got him there, but you know, just had a great career for us, and great for junior college baseball for him to do that and turn down that type of money. Ended up signing for $4.02 million after his draft and follow that year.
When a player comes in as a first-round draft pick, do you coach them differently, or is there a different pressure on coaching a ball player like that?
Well, I think you try to coach them all the same in principle, but when you get a guy like that, there's a lot of things you got to be careful with, and you know, you don't want to get into a position where you embarrass someone or you put someone in a bad situation because of all the publicity you're going to get from having a guy like that. But Adam was a great kid, and you could push any button you wanted to push with him, and he handled the junior college atmosphere and the environment very well, and went on to have a great future.
All right, number 23 on our list, representing Chipola College, Adam Lowen.
Bounces away. Here comes Gore. Play at the plate. Royals win it.
Well, number 22 on our list is Macon, Georgia born and raised Terrence Gore, representing Gulf Coast baseball. Terrence was drafted in the 20th round in the 2011 draft by the Kansas City Royals. He's played parts of 7 Major League Baseball seasons, still active in professional baseball, generally regarded as the fastest player to ever play in Major League Baseball, so certainly one of the fastest, if not the fastest, to play in the Panhandle Conference. Used almost exclusively as a pinch runner, primarily in the playoffs. Terrence has 3 World Series rings, and that is the most by any active professional baseball player right now. Has stolen 356 bases in pro ball. Successful well over 80% of the time, despite the fact that everybody in the stadium knows that Terrence is on base to try and steal that next base. So representing Gulf Coast, Terrence Gore out of Macon, Georgia, and we're going to start that conversation with Coach Kandler.
Yeah, Terrence was very unique in that a former player of mine said, "Hey, you gotta see this guy. You've never seen speed like this." Well, usually you kind of think, okay, he might be fast. Maybe this guy can run a little bit. Well, he showed up for a workout, and he really, at that time, he really couldn't hit or throw, or he was just sort of a project. And I don't know what to do with him. Well, for some unknown reason, we decided to run him last. Well, he took 2 steps. I told my assistant coach, offer him everything we can. I've only seen one other person in my life start like he starts. and it was not a baseball player. It happened to be Justin Gatlin, who was running track for Woodham High School in Pensacola. But Terrence Gore and Justin Gatlin, and Gatlin was the fastest man in the world for a while. So I'm not so sure anybody could beat Gore going around the bases, though. I don't know if anybody. I don't know if Usain Bolt could beat Terrence Gore around the bases. Mac, you kind of have some fond memories of Gore, don't you? It seemed like he had a couple.
3 of them. Yeah, we tried to pick him off first base one time, which I don't know why we were trying to do that. You couldn't pick him, and we threw it away, and he dove back, got up, and scored. Before our right fielder could get to the ball, and then another time, I never could figure out why Mike didn't play him in center. He always played him in deep right center. And we would hit foul balls down the right field line, and the guy, he caught 2 or 3 of them that were right on the fence, and he's playing in deep right center. And that's how fast he was. We had another time where I had a really good athlete on the mound, and Gore was on third base. You remember this.
Oh, yeah, I do.
My man, whoever's at the plate, hits a one-hopper smash back to our guy. He catches it, he turns, Gore takes off. Before the guy could get it to the catcher, Gore's sliding safe. It was unbelievable. So he was a real raw guy. Like Mike said, he had a ways to go at the plate and all, but if he got on, it was over. He was scoring. Somehow he was going to score. So he was just the fastest guy I ever saw in my life, and I had some fast guys too over the years.
Well, you coached Deion Sanders, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I had.
And Coach Kandler, when one of your own wins 1 World Series, much less 3, it's significant to not just you as a coach, but to the program as well.
Well, it speaks a lot to what this whole committee is about. It speaks to Gulf Coast. It speaks to the Panhandle, and that's the type of talent that we get in this league that we've always gotten. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of Terrence. He said his goal is to try to catch Tom Brady with rings, so we'll see if he can get there.
All right, number 22 on our list out of Macon, Georgia, representing Gulf Coast, Terrence Gore.
This one is chopped. Too slow for a double play. Barehanded by Menachino, and he got a run.
Up to number 21 on our list, and that brings us to the name of Frank Menachino, who played at Gulf Coast and then went on to play at the University of Alabama. Frank out of Staten Island, New York. He was drafted in the 45th round out of Alabama in 1993 by the Chicago White Sox. He played 7 seasons in Major League Baseball, a career batting average of .240 and just over 1,200 at-bats. Played in 449 games. Hit .275 in 2004, perhaps his best season in 269 at-bats. Frank started coaching in professional baseball in 2011, was a big league hitting coach for the Marlins and the Chicago White Sox. So number 21 on our list out of Staten Island, New York, is Frank Menachino of Gulf Coast, and we're going to start that conversation with Coach Mazeroski.
What I remember most about Frank when he got here, this was early in my assistant coach tenure here, but when he arrived, he got here and he was okay. Good player, not great, nothing about him screamed, this is a future major league ball player, but one thing about him is he was a tough kid who worked hard, and he just did that all through his college career, and next thing you know, he resurfaced him. But anybody that had that prediction that he was going to be a major league player probably would have been blowing some smoke. But he was tough, and he worked and got the most out of every bit of talent that he had.
And I remember Frank to some degree in covering the ball team in those years, and I always thought to myself that was kind of a football player playing in a baseball uniform.
He was just, he's shorter guy, just kind of strong, not quite great proportions or anything, but he just did it. He worked so hard and just wanted to be that guy, and he got that.
Too.
Yeah, he could run.
He could do a little bit of everything.
So how did that work, Bobby? You recruited him from Gulf Coast?
I recruited him from Gulf Coast and absolutely loved him. I mean, as a coach, he's the kind of guy you absolutely love. But Maz couldn't have said it any better. He never did really do things that caught the eye of professional scouts, although he was a late draft, and not many people thought he was ever going to play in the big leagues. I absolutely did think, because of his determination, the chip on his shoulder. He was undersized. He was going to have everything against him trying to reach the major league level. But I knew where his heart was and his guts and the things that Mike could overcome those shortcomings, and they did. And Frank went on to have a very, very successful career, both as a player and as a major league hitting coach. So I really enjoyed having him at Alabama. He was a big part of our teams there, and was very happy to see him advance and move on through, and very happy to see him on our list here today.
So a real bulldog coming in at number 21, again out of Staten Island, New York, number 21 on the list, Frank Menechino, representing Gulf Coast. We're up to number 20 now on our list, and that leads us to the name of Steve Lombardozzi, who was born in Massachusetts but played his high school ball in Pennsylvania. Steve recruited and played for Coach Frazier here at Gulf Coast, then went on to play at the University of Florida. He was drafted in the 9th round by the Minnesota Twins organization in the 1981 draft. Played 6 Major League Baseball seasons, had a career batting average of .233 and just over 1,200 at-bats. Played in 446 games, hit a World Series leading .412, helping to lead the Twins to that World Series title in 1987. So Steve getting himself a World Series ring. Number 20 on our list is Steve Lombardozzi, representing Gulf Coast, and who we're going to get to start the conversation with Steve.
A little bit on Steve because I actually got to play against him both at the junior college level and in the SEC. So I saw him a lot of times and competed against him a lot of times, and he wore us out many times. So he was a guy that I really appreciated and respected as a competitor against, because it seems like he was a guy always coming to the plate in the big situation and delivering when he got there. So I just remember him being a fantastic player at both levels that we competed against each other at. And because of that, you know, you're going to follow a guy through his professional career, and saw all the things that he was able to accomplish in pro ball and major leagues, and the things that he did. So a lot of respect for him and his family, a lot of baseball in that family. So really enjoyed competing against Steve.
Anybody else to talk about Steve Lombardozzi?
I pitched against him. And
how'd that go for you, Bill?
Well, I'll just say this. He could turn a single into a double if your outfielders weren't ready. I saw him do that. He hit a ball, just a lazy fly ball over second baseman's head, and it fell in for a single. And he knew that the center fielder, who was right-handed, would have to turn about 180 degrees to throw back to second, and it wasn't going to be a very easy throw. And he never stopped running and slid in with a double. That's the kind of player he comes to mind when I think about Steve.
And his son played in the major leagues too.
I believe he did.
Made it up to the
and
Nationals.
Steve later worked for the Pirates, Maz's organization, as their fielding coordinator. Yep. So he was a good defensive player also.
And Coach Kandler, another Gulf Coast alum with a World Series ring, and so his name out there on the stadium wall.
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, I don't know if people recognize just how good this Florida Panhandle Junior College baseball has been, but when you've got guys, he didn't just play in the World Series, he led the team in hitting for that series. And if you remember that team, I think that's Kirby Puckett and Herbeck and Gaetti, and I mean, one of the best offensive teams that I can remember in my lifetime. And so Lombardozzi apparently fit right in with those guys.
So number 20 on our list, Steve Lombardozzi, representing Gulf Coast. To number 19 on our list of top 25 Panhandle Conference baseball players, we come to Aaron Foltz out of Munford, Tennessee, a pitcher for North Florida Community College. He was drafted in the 6th round of the MLB draft in 1992 by the San Francisco Giants organization. Played 8 Major League Baseball seasons with a career record of 25-15 and a .426 earned run average and 479 innings pitched. Predominantly a middle reliever and a setup man. Had a 2.24 earned run average in 72 innings in 2005 and a 2.92 ERA in 37 innings in 2007. Aaron Foltz, currently a pitcher on the AA level for the Phillies organization. So number 19 on our list is Aaron Foltz out of Munford, Tennessee, and Coach Pierce is going to start our conversation on
Well,
him.
I had the opportunity to see him pitch a couple of times in high school and fell in love with Aaron, and was trying to recruit him at the University of Alabama. By that time, you know, he was on the radar of many SEC schools. So I brought him in, had him on a great recruiting visit. We had some college students that showed the kids around, and it was my understanding that he might have ended up marrying one of those girls on his trip to Tuscaloosa, but we didn't end up getting him. He circled back around, but I certainly followed his career because I remembered being a guy that I really wanted to have on my team. So very happy to have him on the list, and had a great career.
And Coach McLeod, do you have some thoughts on Aaron Fultz?
Twice. My first year in the league was '92, and Fultz was there, and he pounded us. He beat us twice that year, and 2 complete games. I know for a fact. And it seemed like he never threw a ball. I mean, he was a short guy. He wasn't tall. He wasn't physically. He wasn't a big guy. I'd come out of FSU, and when I saw this kid, you know, I didn't think I'd be seeing guys like that at that level. And he really was a strike thrower. He pounded it. He had a good, short, tight breaking ball. Had a real quick arm, real short arm action, and just stayed in the strike zone. And he had 3 pitches off of that slot, and he was just tough to get on. Real good pitcher.
So number 19 on our list of top 25 players, Aaron Fultz out of Mumford, Tennessee, representing North Florida Community College.
Corey Patterson can do now. He tries to bunt, pops it up. Friel gives chase, dives in front of the camera well, and hangs on. Walker tags and moves to second. Heads.
Well, number 18 on our list is Ryan Friel, who played at Tallahassee, recruited out of Jacksonville, Florida. Ryan was drafted in the 10th round in the '95 draft by the Toronto Blue Jays organization. Played in 8 major league seasons, 594 career games, a career .268 hitter with 143 stolen bases. Had 140 hits in 2004 with a .277 average in 505 at-bats, his best season in Major League Baseball. So number 18 on our list, representing Tallahassee Community College, Ryan Friel, and we're going to start that conversation with Coach McLeod.
Yeah, Ryan was a kid that I recruited. I saw him at the University of Tennessee summer camp, and he was just one of a fantastic athlete. And when I found out he led the state of Florida, I think he still holds the high school record for stolen bases, which was like 63 in a high school season. And to top it off, he was a catcher. They had a pitcher that nobody could handle, so Friel, you know, I can catch. And he caught the kid. He pitched for the Phillies. I can't think of his name right now. But Ryan was a guy that could play anywhere on the field, which he proved in the big leagues. He played third, second, every outfield position. Was just a real live body guy that had a lot of athleticism and a really, really good player.
And Coach Maz, you have some recollections of this ball player.
Yeah, going against Ryan, I don't remember him ever swinging and missing. His actions in the field, he was so smooth and easy, and he could run. And just one of those guys that when I remember playing against them, he just looked different than everybody else that you went up against. He just had that look about him, how he moved and how he carried himself, that there was something special about him, and you know, no surprise he made it to the major leagues.
Coach Hamilton?
He was one of those guys, for me, being an opposing coach and coaching against him, that was a little advanced, I thought, for our league. I thought he should have been somewhere else when he played here. He was that good. I mean, we've got a host of good players. We're touching on the top 25, which he's inside of 20. But I just felt like he was one of those guys that was just a good enough athlete and a good enough player that he probably should have been somewhere else when because he was man among boys even in our league.
So number 18 on our list is a very versatile player who had a lot of speed from the catcher's spot, very unusual at any level of baseball, out of Jacksonville, Florida. Number 18, Ryan Friel.
Where he is. That's hit to deep left field, and the Giants are trying to climb back into it. 8-4.
That brings us to number 17 on our list of top 25 players in the Panhandle Conference, and that's Greg Litton, who played at Pensacola. Greg was drafted in the first round of the 1984 January draft in the regular phase, played 6 Major League seasons, had a .241 career batting average, primarily noted for being a slick fielding middle infielder with great versatility as he played the outfield as well. In fact, one of the rare Major League Baseball players to have played all 9 positions at some point in his MLB career. A record, again, held by just a few players, was 3 for 6 in the 1989 World Series with a home run. And if you remember, in 1989, that was the earthquake series between the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. So number 17 on our list is Greg Litton, and we're going to start that conversation with Coach Hamilton.
Well, Greg is a Pensacola native and a good friend of mine. Had quite the career in baseball. I remember telling him one time when he was with the Seattle Mariners, he played in AAA that year and in the big leagues. And going back and forth like that, he only actually had a half a year's worth of at-bats by shuffling back and forth. But he had 33 doubles. And I said, man, if you'd stay put, you could have had 66 doubles. So that was a running joke for a time. But Greg used to come out and work out with us preseason every year. And I talked to a scout one time with the Giants that said Greg is an average ball player at 7 positions on a big league diamond. He graded out as a 50 at 7 of the 9 spots. And so he always had a job if he wanted to play. And by being versatile, he's a pretty good hitter. And but Greg's, I'm glad to see him on here. Got a World Series ring. And he's the reason why Will Clark says that Mississippi State did not win the College World Series. And I believe it was in '86 because Greg signed before he went to Mississippi State.
And again, having one of your own with the World Series ring, a good representation for the program in the college.
Yes. Panhandle Conference has a history of being one of the best conferences in the country. And these kind of things that we're doing now kind of brings that to bear. Mm-hmm.
And Coach Pierce, you have some recollections of Greg.
I got started early at Chipola at 23 years old, and he's one of the guys that I first had to face. And, I'm going to tell you, what an athlete. I mean, he played shortstop then, but obviously you could tell he could play any position on the field that he wanted. But he reminds me of what you were talking about, where he seemed advanced for junior college baseball at that time. I thought maybe he was an SEC player right out of high school. So I had high regard for him. He was a tough competitor, a very good athlete, and somebody that I enjoyed watching compete. Because, us as coaches, we don't only like to see our own players do well. We like to see good baseball and good baseball plays. And Greg Litton was a guy that could show you a lot of that.
Yeah, speaking of that, he played in the inter-squad game with us one day when he was in the big leagues. And he made a diving play. Now here you are going into spring training in 4 days. He makes a diving play up the middle and didn't bother to stand up, just threw the guy out from his knees.
Well, once again, number 17 on our list out of Woodham High School in Pensacola, and representing Pensacola Junior College, Greg Litton, number 17.
Tipped into the glove, strike 3. Santiago strikes out the side, and of age trouble.
Well, now we're up to number 16 on the list, and that's Hector Santiago out of Newark, New Jersey. Hector played at what was then Okaloosa-Walton Community College. He was drafted in the 30th round out of Bloomfield Tech High School in New Jersey by the Chicago White Sox as a draft and follow in 2007. Played 10 Major League Baseball seasons with a career record of 48-51, a 4.12 earned run average, and 947 innings pitched. He was an All-Star in 2015, so he is the first player to be on an All-Star squad on our list here. He won 13 games in 2016. So number 16 on our list, Hector Santiago. And who wants to start the conversation talking about him?
Yeah, I'll talk about Hector a little bit. I have, I guess in some ways fond memories, but in other ways not really very fond, because it wasn't a lot of fun facing him. I remember Hector being a big, physical, kind of a just I wouldn't say burly, but a physical left-hander that he was a lot like Fultz, and he just kept coming at you. And it was just going to be a long day. Hector wasn't going to beat Hector. If you were going to beat Hector, you were going to have a good day at the plate, and that was not easy to do. But I know he threw really hard and really competed hard. Hector was, again, to me, he's one of the best lefties to ever come through the league for sure, and I think he's definitely deserving of his number 16 spot. Jeff, do you have that same memory? Or?
Yeah, I remember him being very competitive. And I also remember he pitched very often too. It seemed like you were in a series, and he came back and was.
I thought we were the only ones.
And was throwing on multiple days.
Yeah.
But he was the guy you didn't want to face, and really led that team. He played for Keith Griffin during that time, and they were a very competitive club during that time.
So number 16 on our list, representing Okaloosa Walton, what is now Northwest Florida College, Hector Santiago. Again, our first All-Star on the list.
What they're made of or what they can do, they may be able to do a couple of things right.
Blew it by him up top.
All right, number 15 on our list out of Moss Point, Mississippi is Tony Sipp, who played at Okaloosa Walton and then at Mississippi Gulf Coast and Clemson as well. He was drafted in the 45th round of the 04 draft out of Clemson. Played in 11 Major League seasons with a career record of 26 and 22 with 7 saves and a 3.72 earned run average in 503 innings. Pitched in a total of 616 big league games. Used primarily as a left-handed setup man. He was part of the 2017 World Series champion Astros ball club. Had a 2.93 earned run average in 40 innings in 2009. A 3.03 earned run average in 62 innings in 2011. Had a 1.99 earned run average in 54 innings in 2015. So number 15 on our list is Tony Sipp out of Moss Point, Mississippi. And who's going to start the conversation on Tony?
I remember Tony at Okaloosa Walton, and I was the most surprised guy in the world when he wound up having the career that he had, because as a freshman, he wasn't a hard thrower. He was a high energy guy, but he really didn't throw it very hard. And his off-speed stuff was very inconsistent, and he got better, obviously, and better and better and better, which is a great story in itself, because you'd have never guessed it when he was a freshman. And like I said, they used him in middle relief. He wasn't even a starter back in those days. So.
Well, I actually saw Sipp throw in high school, and he really was primarily a center fielder in high school, and he actually was a two-way guy at Clemson. And all the way through. But I think one of the things that would ring true of so many of these, including Tony, great athlete. Not just somebody that played baseball, but great athlete. I mean, he could really run, and so some of that fast twitch probably had to be refined on the mound, but when it did, he certainly figured it out and had an unbelievable major league career.
Yeah, well, that's a long time. I mean,
yeah.
Just to get left-handers out to play that many games.
Yeah.
600 and something between he and Aaron Fultz. They've pitched in about 1,000 games getting left-handers out. They got some right-handers out down here, but that wasn't their job in the big leagues.
So number 15 on our list out of Moss Point, Mississippi, playing for Okaloosa Walton, Tony Sipp.
Well, the Blue Jays are threatening here in the first inning. Runners at the corners for Michael Saunders. Saunders hits this one deep to left field. This ball's got a chance. It's gone. Michael Saunders.
All right, we're up to number 14 on our list, and our second Canadian makes an appearance here. That's Michael Saunders out of British Columbia, who played at Tallahassee. He was an 11th round draft pick in 2004 by the Seattle Mariners organization. Michael played 9 major league seasons, had a .232 career batting average, hit 81 home runs in the big leagues, hit 24 homers in 2016, 19 in 2012, stole 21 bases in 2012 as well. He was an All-Star in the 2016 season, so another All-Star on our list. As of 2021, he was managing in minor league baseball. A right fielder for Coach McLeod at Tallahassee. And number 14 on our list is Michael Saunders. Coach.
Hey, yeah, Mike was a great find for me. I was coaching, or assistant coaching the USA 18 and under team that year. And we faced Canada a lot. We faced them in the games out in up in Atlanta. We faced him in Curacao, and I kept seeing this kid walk by, 6'5", and he was 16 years old. So I started chatting with him, and Stayed with him. He actually was drafted, I think you said 11th round. I think he went in the 9th round out of high school, but he chose not to sign. And then I had to beat off Chipola to try to get him to Tallahassee, which he finally committed. He had all the tools. He was 6'5", went about 215, could run. Had a lot of stolen bases until he hurt his knee. A lot of stolen bases in the minor leagues. He had power. Actually came to me as a two-way guy, as a pitcher and a hitter. Did not like his arm action as much on the mound, but he could really throw from the outfield. And if he could have kept that arm action, he'd had a better shot on the mound. But Mike was a great kid. He signed after 1 year, which to my chagrin, I wanted him for 2 years. And he was in the same outfield with Lorenzo Cain. And so those two guys could patrol it up pretty good.
And Coach Johnson, you have some memories of Michael?
Yeah, Coach did beat me out on that one recruiting-wise. That's kind of a sore spot. But no, Mike.
He was using Team USA money to fund the recruiting trip.
Now we've got the truth of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, Michael was a very athletic guy, physical guy. Who was a little raw probably when he got here with the bat. You remember he pitched as well back in those days. But an athletic guy with a lot of power and a big future in front of him, which it came true for him down the road.
Coach, when you're recruiting an athlete from a different country, in this case Canada, is that a little more complicated? I mean, Tallahassee, Florida from British Columbia?
The good thing about it is the BC guys can all speak English. And if you get up in Quebec, it's a little different story. But no, it was same as like it was in Pensacola or Atlanta or Jacksonville, wherever. You just call them up on the phone and stay busy with them and try to contact them as often as possible without being a pain in the rear. And eventually he made the decision not to sign, and I was glad.
All right, number 14 on our list, our second Canadian out of British Columbia, Michael Saunders, representing Tallahassee.
Second inning single. He's grounded out and lined out in his other two trips. And a drive down the left field line. The ball is gone!
That brings us to number 13 on our list, and that leads us to catcher Tyler Flowers out of Roswell, Georgia. He played at Chipola and then was drafted in the 33rd round in the 2005 draft by the Atlanta Braves organization, signed as a draft and follow in May of 2006. He played in 12 Major League Baseball seasons, a career batting average of .237 and just over 2,400 at-bats. Tyler hit 86 home runs in the big leagues with 111 doubles. Played in a total of 802 Major League Baseball games. So a catcher out of Roswell, Georgia, Tyler Flowers, playing for Chipola. And Coach Johnson, your recollections of Tyler Flowers?
Yeah, Tyler was a big physical kid, 6'5", probably 220 at that time, and really good arm strength, power in the bat. Defensively, he was still learning the catch and throw techniques of that, and did a great job of developing during his years with us. He's now kind of the guy who's known as the one knee down guy. He was kind of one of the first guys to start that, which I'm not a big fan of, Tyler, if you watch this, but that was kind of his thing. But he had to do it because being 6'5" and probably weighing about 240 pounds at the time with the Braves, he had to get some relief on those knees. But just a great kid with character, conduct themselves the way you want somebody to conduct themselves, and just a great future.
Coach Kandler, you remember Coach Tyler Flowers well?
All too well. I was an assistant for 3 years, and then I took 11 years off from this league at other coaching stops. In my first year back, I remember we played Chipola, our first conference game, and I said, who in the heck is that guy? 6'5", 220. I said, the catchers are that big in the league now? What happened? But I just remember just such a physical presence with arm strength and power with the bat. But I actually didn't know if he would stay behind the plate. I thought they might move him to first base because he was athletic enough to do that. But obviously they knew what they were doing because he became in Pro Bowl excellent defensive catcher.
So number 13 on our list, catcher Tyler Flowers out of Roswell, Georgia, playing in 802 big league games.
Swing and a miss, perfectly placed. The pitch to Vasquez. He struck him out of the bullpen. As Zimmerman swung at a ball in the dirt. First.
Well, next comes a pitcher out of Noonan, Georgia. Number 12 on our list is Will Smith, who played at Gulf Coast. Will drafted in the 7th round by the Angels organization in 2008. He's currently in his 10th season in Major League Baseball, a career record of 31-32 so far with 91 saves. Has a .357 career earned run average in over 531 innings. He was an All-Star in 2019, so another All-Star on our list here. He had 34 saves with a .276 earned run average for San Francisco in 2019. Saved 37 games for Atlanta in 2021 with a .344 earned run average. Also saved every Braves postseason win on their way to winning the World Series in 2021. So another Panhandle player with a World Series ring. Not many guys can say that they got the last out of the World Series, but Will is one of those players. For Gulf Coast, a pitcher out of Noonan, Georgia, pitcher Will Smith, and we're going to start that conversation with Coach Kandler.
Yeah, Will was an interesting one. I had no idea who he was until I went to this showcase. It was hosted by some school called Chipola. It was Jeff Johnson's showcase, and I just saw this huge human being. He's about 6'5", probably 240 pounds, out of high school with good, easy arm action. He didn't throw quite as hard then, didn't have that tight slider that he has now, but he could spin a breaking ball, and he threw plenty hard for our level, and he was just a little bit of a work in progress, but it was all there. So he's one that doesn't really surprise me that he was able to carry it as far as he did. Again, and he could always throw strikes.
And another coach talking about Will Smith?
Well, I recruited Will. I was at Troy University at the time and when he was at Gulf Coast, but he did sign. But as baseball circles go, he ends up in the Angels organization with my son-in-law. So they became very good friends. Will was in my daughter and son-in-law's wedding and vice versa. So I've been around a lot of Will Smith as a big leaguer, and he hasn't changed at all. He's a very competitive, very funny guy too, great sense of humor. But extremely competitive on the mound, and I think that was his driving force to all these great numbers that he's produced at the big league level.
So number 12 on our list, out of Noonan, Georgia, pitcher Will Smith, representing Gulf Coast.
Deep to left center field, back, and this game is over!
Oh my
It's over! I don't believe what we just saw!
This is McDavis!
You gotta be kidding me! This is unbelievable! One of the great comebacks in the history of this organization.
Number 11 on our list of the top 25 Panhandle Conference baseball players is an outfielder out of Tampa, Florida, Jason Michaels, who played what was, again, Okaloosa Walton, and then went on to play at the University of Miami. He was a 4-time draft pick, went in the 4th round in '98. Out of Miami to the Philadelphia Phillies organization. Played 11 seasons of Major League Baseball with a career batting average of .263, and that in over 2,300 at-bats. Played in 1,031 games. Hit .304 in 2005 and 289 at-bats. Hit .267 in 2006. Hit .330 in 2003. And 2006 was the Cleveland Indians organization's nominee for the Roberto Clemente Award. So number 11 on our list out of Tampa, Florida, a center fielder for Okaloosa Walton. And Coach Mazeroski is going to get the conversation started in terms of Jason Michaels.
Yeah, just with Jason, he was athletic, just a combination of strength and speed. He couldn't make a mistake. He could beat you with the bat. He could beat you with his glove and with his legs. Just a talented all-around player. Very, very good. One of the better guys I remember going against in the league.
And Coach Hamilton, you have some recollections of this ball player?
That. He could hit. He could defend, and the theme of athletic position players for the Panhandle Conference can probably be best illustrated with Jason Michaels. I mean, he was a better than average big leaguer for a long time, playing in our league as an outfielder.
And Coach McLeod, you have some recollections.
I just remember Jason's being really competitive and tough out, played the game with a lot of passion, and loved to compete. You know, we had some real competitors during his time there, and they got after it. And Wasn't always nice. They weren't always saying nice things to each other. But he was really competitive and a fun player. I would have loved to have coached him.
His grandfather played in the big leagues, and his dad was a college quarterback. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was came from an athletic family, so he got it honestly, and left here, Okaloosa Walton, I think it was at the time, and went to Miami. Yeah. And, was on some of those good teams down there and was really one of their best players. Yep. Aubrey Huff was on that team that played several years in the big leagues as a power hitter, and Jason held his own and was one of their better players. So he got it honestly.
So another just great overall athlete, number 11 on the list, Jason Michaels out of Tampa, Florida, a center fielder for Okaloosa Walton. Well, now we're into our top 10 here on our show of the top 25 best baseball players in the Panhandle Conference, and that leads us to a Tennessee native by the name of Wayne Garland, who played at Gulf Coast. Wayne was a first-round draft pick in the 1969 June secondary phase by the Baltimore Orioles organization. He went on to play 9 big league seasons with a career of 55 and 56, had a 3.89 earned run average in 1,040 innings pitched. Went 20-7 with the Orioles in 1976 with a 2.67 earned run average and pitched 4 shutouts. So he's the first 20-game winner on our list. Was in the original 1976 free agent class, signed a 10-year deal with the Indians worth $2.3 million, which was humongous money for a Major League Baseball contract. It was one of the richest contracts, in fact, in the initial free agent class. So, Coach Kandler, since he played at Gulf Coast, we'll let you start the conversation talking about 20-game winner Wayne Garland.
I think that one of the interesting points about a guy like Wayne Garland, it speaks to Panhandle Conference baseball didn't just get good last week. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time, and I remember being an assistant with Coach Frazier and him talking about how Wayne Garland was maybe the most dominant guy that he'd ever had an opportunity to coach. I remember watching him pitch for Baltimore when I was a kid. And again, he wins 20 games. The whole Curt Flood thing happens. We're going to have free agency. And he was one of the guys that got the huge money back then. So he was at one time one of the best pitchers in the world. I think, unfortunately, after signing the free agent deal, he ran into some injuries like so many guys do in this sport. But Wayne Garland absolutely belongs in this top 10. And I think anybody that can remember baseball back in the mid-'70s, he was one of the premier starters in the game. And what, he carry just slightly over a 3 ERA for 1,000 innings? It's not really that easy to do.
3.89. Any other recollections of Wayne Garland?
Being a baseball fan all my life, I read up on all these guys. I've read, just like you guys, box scores. I can remember hearing and reading about him. But the most interesting thing that I think that I've read about Wayne is, he continued on after he played, much like many of them, his coaching career. And injuries derailed his coaching career. So not only does it get players, but it gets coaches too.
Yeah. Well, as a youngster growing up in Miami, WIOD radio station down there used to carry a mix of Yankees, Red Sox, and Orioles broadcasts. I was a big Red Sox fan growing up. I remain to this day a Red Sox fan. So I remember rooting actively against Wayne Garland, especially in that 20-win season. I just dreaded when the Red Sox were going to go up against Wayne Garland.
Well, if it helps your feelings, he lost 19 the next year. So.
Well,
he was not part of.
No, they were earlier. They were 72, 71.
Well, he might have caught. He might have been on that staff, but I'm not.
Another question: did he go to the World Series with Gulf Coast when they went in 70 or 69?
I'm not sure if that would have been that year or not.
What year was that, Maz?
I don't think it was on.
Yeah, he signed in 1969, so he was probably out before.
Slightly before.
Well, leading us into our top 10 out of Tennessee is Wayne Garland.
For Adam Duvall, who's been on base 3 times, he's scored 3 times. He's driven in 2 with a 2-run homer. Swings at the first pitch, sends a fly ball down the left field line near the bullpen. Brinson at the wall, leaps up. Did he get it? He did not. It's a home run.
That takes us to number 9 on our list, and that has us focused on Louisville, Kentucky native Adam Duvall, who played at Chipola and then went on to play at Louisville. He was an 11th round 2010 draft out of Louisville by San Francisco. Currently in his 9th big league season, 163 career home runs for Adam and counting. Hit 38 with 113 RBI in the 2021 season. Hit 33 with 103 runs batted in 2016. He's a World Series champ in 2021 with the Braves, an All-Star in 2016, so another All-Star on our list here. His career batting average, 230. He participated in the Home Run Derby at one point and is the only player in big league history to have a 2-run homer followed by a 3-run homer followed by a grand slam in the same game. So 9 RBI in 3 at-bats for Adam Duvall. Again, out of Louisville, Kentucky, representing Chipola, Adam Duvall. And let's talk to Coach Jeff Johnson about him. Interesting story how he wound up at Chipola.
Yeah, it was. You know, Adam was at Western Kentucky, and in 2008, I guess it was, we'd lost a guy late in the draft, and we're trying to find another infielder, and we brought him in and worked him out. Ended up signing him that year. Just progressed as the year went on, and we went to the World Series that year, and by the end of the year he was our best hitter and probably our best player at that time. Had great power, a guy that could really swing the bat. Defensively he did well, and he kind of played all over the place in the big leagues. You know, he's gone from the infield to the outfield, and really surprising that he was in center field this past year as well. But a great kid. One of the things a lot of people don't know, he's a diabetic as well, but just a super guy, and just one of those guys that I think all of us would say when you saw him, he had great power in our league, but just kept progressing along the way, and you know, be a Major League All-Star, hitting the Home Run Derby, and be a World Series champion, and things he's done is just a credit to him.
Played second base for you. Unusual for a second baseman to be the power hitter in the lineup.
Yeah, you know, he was a shortstop coming in, and we had a pretty good shortstop that year, so we moved him over to second base. And you know, he'd come in, like I said, from Western Kentucky, and trying to feel his way back through some things and getting his confidence going, and second base was the place where he could just worry about his hit and then go to work, and that's what he did.
And Coach Kandler, you had the luxury of watching him hit a lot of balls out of
I remember when I was talking with Jeff right after he got Duvall signed, and I said, hey, did you add anybody? Did you pick up anybody lately? He says, yeah, I got this second baseman from Western Kentucky, but he's not a very good player. He probably won't do a whole lot, which Jeff, he kind of like said, you know, soft sell it sometimes. After he hit a ball literally over the lights at Chipola, I said, yeah, I think he is a pretty good player. So I felt better when he was picked to be in the Home Run Derby in the big leagues. It wasn't just us that he showed that power against.
Has he led the big leagues at home runs? Didn't he one year? Or led one of the leagues?
He may have.
I thought he did.
He was at the top. I don't know if he led it, but he was at the top one of the years.
Well, Coach Johnson, this speaks to be able to watch one of your own just, you know, move on to a Division I program and then into Major League Baseball. But talk about what it means to you as coaches to see one of your own succeed on a continual basis the way Adam has.
Well, I think it's what we all do it for. You know, you don't do it for the money necessarily. You do it to watch these guys grow and progress and all that. And you get a guy like Adam who transferred from Division I to a junior college. Also, he went to Louisville after that, and he was the team captain for 2 years as well there. So it speaks to his character and everything else as well. To see those guys just continue to develop and improve mentally and physically and all that, and it just, you know, all of us have had them, and it just makes you smile and be grateful to be a part of it.
And to have him continually representing Chipola College as well at a big league level.
Well, I think one of the themes in all of this is a lot of these guys were not necessarily the guys any of us thought would be the top 25 Panhandle players when they played in the Panhandle. There was a lot of players that maybe were better junior college players, but these were the guys that just kept getting better and better, and Duvall certainly that.
Yeah, and it's good for us. I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of them, but I would stick my neck out and say they're the same way. But you know, we can sit down at night when the big leagues are playing, and we can flip to just about any channel and find somebody we can root for because they played in the Panhandle Conference.
Yep.
All right, number 9, Adam Duvall, a player that we continue to root for as he moves on in his big league career out of Louisville, Kentucky, representing Chipola.
2-0 pitch to Whitten. That is a smash into left center field, way back, and a grand slam. Mark Whitten, it's 4-0 St. Louis. The 4th grand slam of the year by the Cardinals.
Well, number 8 on our list is Mark Whitten out of Pensacola High School in Pensacola, Florida. He played at Pensacola Junior College. Drafted in the 5th round of the '86 January draft, the regular phase, by Toronto in that year. Played 11 seasons of Major League Baseball and career .259 hitter with 105 home runs. Had 25 homers and 99 RBI in the '93 season. Had 22 home runs in 1996. Had a game in 1993 in which he hit 4 home runs and drove in 12 runs. One of the few players to ever hit 4 home runs in a Major League Baseball game, and one of 2 players to ever drive in 12 runs in a single game. Had one of the best outfield arms in the history of the game. Also had 70 career stolen bases. So representing Pensacola Junior College out of Pensacola High School, outfielder Mark Whitten, and we're going to start that conversation with Coach Hamilton.
Thanks. Played for Buddy Kistner. Buddy has quite a few people on this list that we call down to 25. Did a great job developing Mark because Mark didn't play high school baseball very much. He was a football star. And they told him that he could go a lot further if he picked up baseball. So he actually picked it up at Pensacola Junior College. I recruited him and watched him pitch one day, and he was 92, 94, but I preferred strikes, and Mark couldn't throw many of those. He lived right up here around the neck with his fastball. And but was one of those Panhandle Conference kids that got better as he went along. Mark, what a lot of people didn't understand once you see him at 6'4" and 238, was what an athlete he was. The story I was told, I was up there watching another Panhandle Conference player's debut in St. Louis, Billy Sadler, who when he was playing for the Giants, and was talking to the team photographer who'd been there probably 40 years, said when they got Mark Whitten, he was standing out in front of the dugout with Ozzie Smith. And Mark came out of the dugout and introduced himself. And when he met Ozzie, he said, "You're the guy that does those backflips opening day when you run out to your position." And Ozzie said, "Yeah, that's me." And the photographer told me he took his hat off and glove and handed it to Ozzie and said, "Watch this," and did a standing backflip between the two of them. So Whit had very good athletic ability. And one other thing that I'll mention was we talked about his year when he had the 25 home runs and 99 RBIs. And I asked him, how many times did you hit a ball in the gap with the catcher on first or the pitcher on first or some situation, RBI situation, and the slowest runner on the team be on the bases? I mean, because you got 600 at bats. It had to happen. Right. At some point, you only needed one more, and you're in the big contract. And he goes, probably not near as many times as I popped up or struck out with a runner on third with less than 2 outs. So he was a very humble guy and a great athlete and a great representative of Pensacola and Pensacola Pirates and, of course, our league.
And Coach Pierce, you have some thoughts?
Well, Bill covered it well there, but I was coaching against Mark when he was at Pensacola, and one of the things that you do with your players is during in and out, infield, outfield, you have your team watch the outfielder's arm strength. So when people say this guy had one of the best arms in the major leagues, they are not kidding, if not the best arm in the major leagues, because that guy, when he got ready to throw, every eye in the ballpark was going to watch him throw. This arm was like it was shot out of a cannon for sure. It was unbelievable. Best arm I ever saw to this day. And Mark was exactly what everybody had talked about as a player, and certainly had a great career and in the top 10 on the list. But what I remember way back in the day was that arm strength was phenomenal.
Yeah, he threw a guy out in the Cubs when he was playing in the National League. Cubs used to have their bullpen, on the field down the right field line, and some guy squirreled one down the right field line, and it's bouncing and spinning and hunting foul territory. And so that's a double for most people, and he rounds first and goes into second. Whitten's playing right field for the opposing team, runs across the mound, which causes the majority of us to fall. and he's on the mound, and he plants his right foot and spins inside, and then the cameraman goes to second base bag. The runner is not quite in the frame, and here came the ball. Out. Yeah, so that's a phenomenal throw.
Coach Johnson?
You know, I played against him when I was here at Gulf Coast, and, you know, the two things I remember is the arm strength as everyone else, but the power in the bat as well. And, you know, back in those days, I think we played doubleheaders. I think it was on Fridays and Saturdays or Saturdays and Sundays, whatever it was. And it was a full weekend when you had 4 games against him.
So number 8 on our list out of Pensacola High School, Mark Witten representing Pensacola Junior College.
David Freese waits. Swung on and missed for out number 1. Well, he did the same thing Freese did.
I would have done exactly that.
We're up to number 7 on our list now, and that takes us to Pat Corbin, who played at Chipola. Pat from upstate New York, the Syracuse area, drafted in the 2nd round by the Angels organization in 2009. He's currently coming off his 10th big league season with a career record of 85 and 97, a 4.22 earned run average in over 1,400 innings pitched. He started in 249 big league games. He was an All-Star in 2013 and 2018, 14-8 with a 3.41 earned run average in 2013, was 11-7 with a 3.15 ERA in 2018. Pat 14-7 with a 3.25 earned run average in 2019. He was the winning pitcher in the 2019 World Series Game 7 and signed a $140 million contract not too long ago. So Pat, one of the biggest money players on our list so far. Once again, representing Chipola, Pat Corbin out of New York, and Coach Johnson's going to start the conversation on Pat.
Yeah, you know, Pat was a great athlete. He transferred to us from a junior college up in New York for his sophomore year. He was pitching down in a summer league game down in South Florida, and I had a guy call me and made the comment. He said, "Hey, I got a left-handed pitcher for you." And I said, "Really?" I said, "You know, where is he?" And he said, "He's at a junior college up in New York." I said, "Well, there's no way we can get a guy to come to us from a junior college. You got to have a transfer waiver." He said, "Oh, his coach will sign the transfer waiver for you." And I was like, "Yeah, right." So, you know, I called the coach, and he was the nicest guy you'd ever seen. He said, "Coach, if he had a chance to come to Florida and pitch, I'd want to sign this waiver and let him come." So that's the way we got Pat. You know, just a heck of an athlete. Most people don't understand. He could 360 dunk a basketball. Greg Hire was our basketball coach at that time, and we had a really good team. I think we're ranked number 1 in the country, and he was trying to get Pat to play. And,
wow.
But he was that type of an athlete. You know, the breaking ball was hard to deal with, and you know, fastball just kept progressing. You know, he's probably 87 to 90 when he got to us, and then bumped it on up where he's probably 89, 91, 92, touching some threes when by the time he left us. But you know, just a great athlete, great kid. You know, and has had a great career as well.
Coach Mazeroski, you have some thoughts about Pat because you scouted him, didn't you?
Yeah, just from a perspective of he was really intriguing because a northern guy with a fresh arm, very athletic with a basketball background, and just seeing him arrive at Chipola and where he was and just how much better he got through you know, how he rose to the level of the competition down here, getting around an environment with a lot of good players, and really took off. And you know, as an organization, I know we liked him a good bit, and the Angels jumped up and grabbed him real quick in the 2nd round, but never had a chance to get to us. But he was really intriguing, just how fast he developed once he got down here.
And Coach Johnson, he continues to be a great representative for your institution and the baseball program at Chipola.
Yeah, he does. You know, anytime you call him, he'll get you tickets. He'll get you in. He spends time with you. Just a class guy. You know, had his first kid not too long ago, and he's living down in Jupiter, Florida right now. And you know, again, just really proud of him. You know, not many people get to have that ball in their hand for that last out of a World Series, and he was fortunate to do that. And been some injury issues the last year or two. He had Tommy John. He's had to come off of that, and did that with in the year when he came back and won that final game. So just proud of Pat. Just a class act, great character kid.
Jeff, how come you never gave that guy to give you that phone call any of our numbers? That would have been a nice phone call.
You know, we all get them. You get those calls, and some pan out.
Yeah, that one's a pretty special
Most
call.
of them we're not talking about today.
But this one did pan out for sure.
All right, number 7 on our list, out of upstate New York, representing Chipola, Pat Corbin. Well, that brings us to number 6 on our list, a player who played at Gulf Coast by the name of Jeff Russell. He is out of Wyoming, Ohio. That's Ohio, not Wyoming. Wyoming High School in Ohio. Jeff was a 5th-round draft pick in 1979 by the Reds organization, played 14 years of Major League Baseball with a career record of 56 and 73, had 186 saves, so obviously primarily as a reliever, a 3.75 career earned run average in 1,099 innings. He was an All-Star in 1988 and 1989. He was the 1989 American League Rolaids Relief Pitcher of the Year, saved 38 games in that season. So representing Gulf Coast, we're talking about a pitcher out of Ohio by the name of Jeff Russell. And Coach Kandler, you're going to talk to him.
Yeah, I remember just, again, being a baseball fan, watching Russell work. And he, like a lot of guys, you could call it a failed starter. I don't really like that term. But once they moved him to the bullpen, he became absolutely dominant. And he had a period of time there where, and just to put it in perspective, he was the best guy in the world at finishing a baseball game. And so for him to be in our top 10 is certainly deserving. What I remember is like most really good relievers, everybody talks about their stuff, which his stuff was great, but he had the pinpoint control and he had the out pitch and the strikeout pitch with that slider. So that's what I remember about Russell. Just absolutely, when he was with the Rangers, when he came on, the game was over.
Well, no shame moving from being a starting pitcher to a reliever. A couple of guys by the name of Eckersley and Smoltz come to mind. They were pretty good.
It's a common theme. In fact, most of the great relievers in baseball history were starters to start their careers.
Yeah, at some level, they be it in high school or college ball, they were starting pitchers.
Whatever coach had Mariano Rivera starting, though, needs to sell insurance.
Number 6 on our list, Jeff Russell representing Gulf Coast.
Must have heard it hit off the catcher's glove.
Angel Hernandez is giving Buck a lot of leeway here.
Well, the argument is, how does the third base umpire or any umpire see that from way out there?
And again, the problem with this entire situation is that he got the call wrong to begin with.
Yeah, I don't think Buck's going to be long for this game. He keeps arguing this one.
There he goes. Buck has been tossed.
Well, now we're up to number 5 on our list of top 25 greatest baseball players in the Panhandle Conference. And this time we're centering on a manager in Major League Baseball. His name is Buck Showalter. Out of Century, Florida, played high school baseball for his father and at Century, and then went on to play at Chipola and Mississippi State. He was drafted in the 5th round of the 1977 draft out of Mississippi State by the Yankees organization. And Buck was an All-American at Mississippi State, where he hit .459 in 1977. That's a school record. He was the MVP of the Cape Cod League in 1976 when he led that league with a .434 batting average. He never made it to the big leagues as a player, in spite of hitting over .294 in 7 minor league seasons, but he has gone on to manage for 21 seasons as a big league skipper, including his current stint with the New York Mets. He is a 4-time Manager of the Year, 3 times in the American League, and this past season with the Mets, managing the New York Mets. So our next on our list, number 5, is Buck Showalter with Chipola, and we're going to start with Coach Pierce talking about Buck.
Well, Buck's another one of those guys that, as I was a teenager in high school, I was watching him play at Chipola. He was a great player, hard-nosed player, very competitive guy. I mean, he played really hard, enjoyed watching him play. And then throughout his career, but for this list, Buck he's done it all. He was a really good player. Didn't make it to the big league level, but as a manager, he's probably a Hall of Fame guy. And solidifying that with his 4th Manager of the Year award in the 2nd league, in both leagues actually. And so I'm very, very happy that Buck's on this list. I was fortunate enough to be at Citi Field this past season when they were playing the Astros and got to spend quite some time with him. And just a first-class, all-the-way guy. Love him to death. Very happy to have him on the list.
And Coach McLeod, do you have some thoughts about Buck Showalter?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to pitch against Buck a couple of times. He was at Chipola. I was at Florida State. We used to play fall scrimmages back then against Gulf Coast and Chipola, and I got to see him then. Faced him in the Cape the year that he hit everything in sight. He was a really tough out. It doesn't surprise me at all that he was a referee. He's just that guy that's into sports so much. It doesn't surprise me at all that he's a great manager. Also, one other tidbit, when I got released from the Yankees, they would wake you up at 6 o'clock in the morning. The guy sleeping next to me was Buck Showalter.
Oh, wow.
And all he said was, catch you on the flop, Matt.
Coach Johnson, when you have a person of this stature continuing to succeed at the highest level of professional sports, it's just great for Chipola College.
No doubt, Buck was a little older than I was, but I've been able to forge a relationship with him, and he's come back and spoken at our alumni banquets and all that, and just a great guy to have a relationship. We'll be able to pick up the telephone and ask some questions and ask for some advice, and he's always been there. Anytime I picked up the phone to call him, he's always done that. I was unfortunate not to get to go with Bobby this past year and see him, but it's a great person, great manager, and great representative of Chipola College. And
not just a player, but also a Panhandle native represented on our list here at number 5, Buck Showalter of Century, Florida.
Here's the 0-1. That's a shot into the gap in left center. Everybody takes off. 1 run scores. Here comes Escobar, and now Zobrist. Kane has emptied him.
And next on our list is the number 4 ranked player as voted by by the panel here. The top 25 players in the Panhandle Conference out of Madison, Florida, Lorenzo Kane, who played at Tallahassee. Lorenzo was drafted in the 17th round by the Brewers organization in 2004. Signed as a draft and follow out of Tallahassee. Played 13 Major League seasons, accrued 10 years service time. Career .283 batting average and over 4,300 at-bats. He stole 190 bases, scored 626 runs, had 87 home runs in the big leagues with 454 RBI. Kane was an All-Star in 2015 and 2018. Hit .301 in the 2014 season and 471 at-bats. Hit .307 in 2015, .287 in 2016. Had a .308 batting average in the 2018 season and was a World Series champion in 2015 with the Kansas City Royals. A 2019 Gold Glove winner, a 2014 ALCS MVP, and in 2015, in that season, he was voted 3rd in the American League Most Valuable Player Award voting. So Lorenzo Kane out of Madison, Florida, representing Tallahassee Community College, is number 4 on our list. And Coach McLeod, you're going to start the conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to sit here and pat myself on the back and tell myself how smart I was. When he worked out for me, he wasn't good. He was very fast, and he had upside out the kazoo, but I can remember throwing BP or whoever was throwing. He swung through about 7 or 8 pitches, and you're just kind of doing this. But he had a buddy named Jeremy Haynes, who I really wanted, and they were best buddies. And Haynes had committed to Florida State, but questions were whether he would qualify or not. So I really wanted Haynes, so I was working that angle. And part of that angle was to sign Kane. And that fall, I don't think he got a hit the whole fall. And we came back. I wasn't sure he'd start for us, but he couldn't throw, had a very weak arm because he hadn't played a lot of baseball. And he could run, and he could catch, he could defend. But he wasn't a thrower, and he couldn't make contact with a baseball. And all of a sudden, you could see the transformation starting to take place. I don't think he started our first 2 games that year. And then we went to Douglas and played South Georgia, and he went off. I started him. He went 4 for 4 and never took him out of the lineup after that. But he continued to get better. He's a great example of what junior college baseball is all about. You know, you get that opportunity to play in junior college. Had he gone to a 4-year school, he'd have gotten buried. He was a great student. He could have gone to it. He could have qualified. He'd have never played his first year, and you never know what would have happened. And so we can't take credit for that. It's just getting the guy on the field and letting him play, and he just got better and better and better. And what a career.
Coach Hamilton, you have some thoughts on Lorenzo Cain?
I spent some time in his hometown. I was at North Florida Junior College as a baseball coach and athletic director, and still have many friends in Madison County. And so I knew about Lo Cain from when he was a young boy playing baseball. And he didn't play, I don't think he went out for his high school team until his 10th grade, and didn't have a glove. And so, he had to borrow a glove when he got there, and he put it on the wrong hand. He didn't know what to do on a baseball field. And I think Mac said it best. You come to a junior college program, especially in the Panhandle Conference, where you see the kind of competition we've talked about today, and your development really accelerates. And he was one of those kind of guys that just needed that development. You play 20 games, 25 games in the fall, and 56 games in the spring, maybe 60 counting state tournament. So you're looking at a guy getting 300 at bats, versus you go to a 4-year school and you sit on the bench, you play in six inter squad games. You wind up being a junior with 25 at bats versus coming out of one of our places with 600 or 400. Still, you've got that development, and Lorenzo Cain certainly took advantage of that.
Coach Mazeroski, you have some thoughts about Cain?
Lorenzo's a great example of why the old draft and follow system in the Major League Draft was so valuable. A little bit raw, but the Brewers saw something in him, and you could draft him and have the opportunity to watch him play and develop, and then have the chance to sign him again. So that setup with the old draft and follow was really valuable, and Lorenzo was as good of an example as any that I can remember of taking advantage of that and running with it.
And another member of this top 25 that has a World Series ring. So number 4 on the list, Lorenzo Cain out of Madison, Florida, representing Tallahassee Community College.
It's got to be. Popped him up. And Martin will give it a peek and makes an unbelievable grab.
All right, we're into the top 3 on our list of top 25 baseball players in Panhandle Conference history. And we're now focused on our 3rd Canadian on this list. It is Russell Martin out of Montreal. He played at Chipola. Russell, drafted by the Dodgers in the 17th round of the 2002 draft. Played 14 major league seasons, a career .248 hitter and over 5,700 at-bats. Hit 191 home runs with 771 RBI. He stole 101 bases as well. 255 doubles in his career. Was an all-star in 2007, 2008, 2011, 2015. Hit .293 in 2007 and 540 at-bats. Hit .280 in 2008. Won a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger Award in 2007, a rare feat for a Major League Baseball player. Number 3 on our list is a Montreal native Russell Martin, and he played for Jeff Johnson at Chipola.
Scott, we recruited Russell in 2001. He was on Team Canada, and we signed 3 guys that year off Team Canada, Eric Bernier, Ivan Nakarada, and Russell. And we had a hard time getting those guys to sign. We kept sending their scholarships, and I don't think they trusted Coach Johnson back in that day or something. But we finally got up with Russell's dad. He told us if we'd take Russell too, that he'd guarantee all 3 of them came. So that was kind of a funny story how we got Russell. But Russell's a great athletic guy. In 2001, he was our second baseman, played some third base as well, and swung the bat well. And he and Jose Bautista played on the same team during that year, which was a neat story as well. But in 2002, when he came back, we lost a catcher late in the draft. We only had 1 catcher that year. So Russell caught about 15 games, went to him, and I went to him and said, hey, man, can you catch? We need another guy. Your profile, your arm strength, your hands, all that are very, very good. Would you do that? I think it'd help you down the road. So he ended up catching for us about 15 games that year, and we had a really, really good club that time. We had 13 draft picks on that team, and that year we were getting ready to go to state tournament. We had a bunch of scouts come in to watch us, and a guy named Clarence Johns was with the Dodgers at that time, and Russell was swinging the bat, hitting a little bit, and we were talking about where he'd profile, and I said, I think he needs to be a catcher, and come to find out that year, nobody said a word that year in the draft. Clarence ended up taking him and ended up signing him. I don't think anybody would have thought, 3 years later he's in the big leagues playing and where his career went to from there. But, just another one of the guys who just really developed and took to the catching piece of it and wow, what a career.
Coach McLeod.
Well, I remember Russell. I obviously as a third baseman more than as a catcher, but I remember the first time I laid eyes on him, I went, I want guys that look like that. He was just a different guy. He was cut different, and I remember saying something to him one day, just kind of goofing. We would all I'd talk to some of Jeff's players, some of Mike's players occasionally, say something funny. He didn't laugh. He was very serious, at least he appeared to be so. And I remember he hit about 7 straight doubles off of us his freshman year, all sliders. And I said, we're not throwing this guy anymore, sliders. And after that, we started trying to get in on him. And but he was definitely a cut above. They said it earlier. Some guys just got that look, and he had it.
Coach Mazeroski?
Just remember like coaching third and talking to him, and you just see he was just very intense. He wasn't the talkative, chatty type, and just the intensity that he brought to the game, and no surprise the success he had later in his career, but just very, very serious, hard-nosed player.
Does that make you want to talk to a player more when he's not responding to you?
No, just leave him alone.
Coach Hamilton.
Good player, good athlete, but I believe it was you, Jeff, told me that his future might be as a catcher, and he played third so well, just couldn't see it. I mean, he was such a good third baseman. He was a good athlete, and like they said, he played hard, and I liked him at third. And I guess he played some in the big leagues, didn't he, at third?
Played a little bit all over the infield in big leagues.
So yet another great representative for Chipola. Number 3 on our list out of Montreal, Russell Martin. So that brings us to number 2 on this prestigious list of the top 25 players to have played in the Panhandle Conference in terms of baseball, and that is Jose Batista out of the Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic. He played at Chipola, drafted in the 20th round out of Chipola in 2000 by the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, signed in May of 2001 as a draft and follow, played 15 Major League Baseball seasons with a career batting average of .247. In his career, Jose hit 344 home runs in the big leagues with 975 RBI, so just 25 ribbies short of 1,000, and that in 6,051 at-bats. Jose played in a total of 1,798 big league games, had 312 doubles. He was an all-star in 2010, 11, 12, 13, and 14 and 15. Stole 70 bases in his career, kind of unusual for a power hitter to steal that many bases. And in his career had 1,496 hits. He won 3 Silver Slugger Awards, 2 Hank Aaron Awards. He's a 5-time American League Player of the Month and also won an Olympic bronze medal in 2020. So number 2 on our list of top 25 here in the Panhandle Conference, Jose Batista. Coach Johnson, talk a little bit about what a significant ball player this was for Chipola.
Well, unbelievable talent and unbelievable person as well. Probably one of the most giving players that I've had the pleasure of coaching throughout the years, and never will not answer the telephone. You call him, no matter what the situation, always gets back to you. But just a great person along with a great player. We got the guy who got named Don Oderman back in the day, who sent players to a lot of the Panhandle Conference teams back in that day, and I was a young coach, and they called me about Jose Batista, and he was a skinny 6 foot, 165 pound I said, where can he play? He said, anywhere, outfield, infield, wherever you want to play him. So, we brought him in and we put him at third base a little bit early in his career there in 2000, and moved him to right field as well. The things you'd think on Jose, not only was a great hitter, hit the ball a long ways as a young kid, and you felt like the strength would come to play some days where he continued to hit it further and further, but he had a great arm strength as well. I remember we were playing Bill and them one day in Mariana, and it was kind of getting tight and down to the end of the conference standings, and they hit a ball in the outfield, and I think it was the ninth inning. If they would have scored that run, they'd have beat us or gone ahead by 1 in the ninth. He turned and ran to the fence, caught the ball. Bill's guy, I think, didn't think he was going to catch it and stepped off the bag a couple of steps, came back and retagged. He threw the one hopper to the plate and threw him out, and we kind of got some momentum and ended up winning that game and went on to the state championship that year. But just a talented guy. Most people didn't know this as well. He could have played shortstop for us as well. We had a guy named Jonathan Swearingen that year who played short, and Jose played third and right field as well, but could do a little bit of it all. Also, he pitched for us. He was our closer that year as well. We get to the state tournament during the end of the season to the state tournament. We had a guy named Kyle Pawelczyk who was a second-round draft pick who had a little tenderness in his arm. So we had to kind of get Jose's pitch count built up. I was going to start him at the state tournament. So we get to game 3 to the winners bracket championship playing St. Pete. And we started Jose, and I was like thinking we'd get probably 6 innings out of him, 5 innings out of him. We get on into the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. He wouldn't come out and win a complete game and won that game at the state tournament for us. But just an ultimate competitor, almost to a fault sometimes. He had to learn to control his temper a little bit. I told him one time we had an ice machine in our dugout. I told him he'd have to buy me an ice machine one day because he'd beat that thing up during the time. But just
he just made enough money to
yeah, he can handle that. But just not only a great player, a great person, probably. People in the media have probably portrayed him as somebody he isn't in some ways because he is an ultimate competitor, but a great person with a great heart as well.
Yeah, one of the great bat flips in postseason history as well. Coach Pierce, you have some thoughts on Jose Bautista?
Yeah, he was another one of those guys that on the recruiting trail for me that I ran across. Of course, we always recruited Panhandle Conference players very hard throughout my Division I career, but you see all these guys play all these years, coached some of them, competed against some, and then recruited some. Bautista, to me, was the ultimate 5-tool player. When you went to watch whatever you're going to watch, infield, then the game, the at-bats, the defensive play during the game, this guy was probably the best player I remember seeing play. And then, on later in, when I worked for Jeff a year, he was in town. I got to meet him. I agree with everything Coach Johnson has said. He's just a tremendous person. I also agree that he may not be portrayed by the media like of who he really is. This guy's got a big heart, awesome player, a guy any of us would grow to love.
With 344 career home runs, number 2 on our list, representing Chipola, Jose Bautista.
1-2 the count to Gary Ward, 2 outs in the 9th. He's 1 strike away from 300 victories. He went around and it's over.
Well, now we're at the point number 1 in our list of the top 25, the number 1 player in the history of the Panhandle Conference, and that is none other than Don Sutton, who pitched at Gulf Coast. Don out of the Molina, Pensacola area. Molina is the town he grew up in. Played 23 seasons in Major League Baseball with a career record of 324 wins, 256 losses, and a career earned run average of 3.26. Pitched more than 5,282 innings and a total of 774 big league games. An All-Star in 1972, 1973, 1975, 1977. In his career, Sutton struck out 3,574 hitters. That's 7th on the all-time list. He pitched in 4 World Series. Unfortunately for Don, didn't get a World Series ring. He won 15 or more games in 12 big league seasons. Just an incredible statistic. He ranks 14th in Major League Baseball on the all-time wins list. Led the National League in earned run average in 1973 with a 2.42 ERA. His number is rightly so retired by the Dodgers organization. He was also a member of the Atlanta Braves Hall of Fame as an announcer in 2015, and he was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1998. So representing Gulf Coast, the great Don Sutton, and we're going to start that conversation. We're going to let all of you comment on Don Sutton's career. We'll go from left to right. Coach Kandler.
For me, Don Sutton just brings back great memories of being a baseball fan when I was a kid. He was a household name, and you know we've got everything on this list. We've got All-Stars, we've got Gold Glove winners, we've got Silver Sluggers, we've got World Series champions. But when you have a Hall of Famer, people just don't really understand how rare that is. I mean, I think Darren could speak to that with his father being in, but that's just an unbelievable accomplishment. I remember a guy that pitched a little more upright, it seemed like, than what a lot of guys did, but I think that actually added to that tremendous curveball. And I just know he made a lot of people swing and miss, and that was just a fun period of baseball back then, watching the Dodgers perennially, you know, a playoff team, and he was just such a huge part of it. So I just remember him as being one of the best guys that I can possibly remember from my childhood.
Coach McLeod.
Agreed. Sutton came along right when I was in high school. Where his great years were 73 was the year I graduated from high school. 72, 73, 74. So he was certainly a household name, like Mike said, and he was a guy to, as a pitcher that I was, sort of, he was a guy to really emulate and try to be him, you know, and you'd sit there and watch those superstars up there, and that's who you wanted to be, and Sutton was one of those guys.
Coach Pierce.
Same here on that. Knowing he was from our area growing up, was easy to become a fan, even though he pitched for the Dodgers way out west. Yeah, I used to love to watch him compete. And then I was fortunate enough when I was coaching at Troy, his brother lived in Troy, Ron lived in Troy. And he was at probably 90% of our practices at Troy, his brother Ron, and most of our games, and he always stood in the same place. So during practice, I'd invite Ron into the first base dugout. Just he and I would sit and talk baseball. And daily, Ron would go back to their days growing up in Molina and how that all worked out, and it was just a fun time for me hearing all the stories of not just, you know, knowing what he'd done in his major league career as a Hall of Famer, but hearing all the stories of how he got to that point as a young man. So I just got fond memories through Ron about Don, and certainly big fan of his as a major league player.
Coach Johnson.
You know, being a little younger and playing here at Gulf Coast, I remember the name being on the board and being the guy they talked about, you know, when I was here, and you know, being able to watch him, you know, back in that day when you were on TV watching the playoff games, and he's pitching in the playoff games and doing all those things. The top competitor, top pitcher he was, and you know, always got a lot of publicity because he was one of the best there was out there. But had kind of a unique story with his son Darren. He was the guy that announced the 2017 and 18 national championship games out in Grand Junction, and got a chance to meet him as well. So a good little side note there as well.
Coach Hamilton.
Like the rest of them, grew up watching Don, rooting for him because he was one of us. But through my association with different community organizations in Pensacola, got to know Don through the years. And he was always available and down-home guy. Some funny stories. He worked on that curveball, Mike, with his elementary PE teacher instead of being in class. They would be outside the building playing catch when he should have been inside listening about Christopher Columbus or somebody.
Well, Bill, I would say this, if the elementary PE teacher could catch that curveball, somebody should have signed him too.
Well, and I think kudos go to the history teacher for letting him, because he certainly made the right choice. Yeah. And we had City of Champions event. We were in the process of trying to build a museum for all of the sports heroes of Pensacola, and Don was gracious enough to attend just about everything we did, and I could call him and ask him and invite him, and he would come. And very good family man. Daddy was still working hard and farming until his last years out in Molino. Ballpark in Molino is named after Don Sutton. There's a road highway out there, Don Sutton Highway. And we're just very proud. The community was very proud of Don, and he always gave back. I mentioned to Pensacola later on when he got into broadcasting. We were talking earlier about him. Some of the most amazing things that you don't see now. So he had 178 complete games in the big leagues. There won't be teams have that. And Tampa probably doesn't have 178 complete games now. He had 9 shutouts in 1 year. And I think guys are just happy to have a complete game. You have to this game today, you have to have a no-hitter going into the ninth to have a shutout. They won't let you get that far nowadays. So just phenomenal performer.
Coach Mazeroski, your thoughts on Don Sutton?
Just to have a guy with that kind of a career that you grew up watching, and just to have the connection to the school where I played here and got to coach here, and just that connection with a player of that caliber, I always thought that was pretty cool.
Certainly a worthy number 1 on this list, Don Sutton out of Molino in the Pensacola area of Florida, and a fantastic representative in terms of Panhandle Conference baseball to be number 1 on this list.